Currently, I am a county commissioner, but before being a commissioner, I was an event planner. I managed freight, so I was in the service industry, started an event center in Leadville and a hotel. I was a mountaineer and a rock climber and ran logistics for Outward Bound. So, a wife to Cisco and a mother to my 2 kids, Aurelia and Robin. I am a best friend to many people, and of course a daughter and a sister. And I'm also a rape survivor. Raped twice. The very first time was when I was 18. I had just turned 18. I was with some friends, and it was my first time ever drinking. And I was raped by like a childhood friend. We lived right next door to each other. We spent so much time together. And I tried to go to bed, and he just kept following me. And I kept saying, no, like, go to bed, no. And I kept walking away, and he'd corner me and just like press up against me into walls or into the sink or wherever. And then finally I got into my bedroom. He pushed me down on the bed and then forced his dick into my mouth. And I couldn't get him to go away. He was so distracted by his own pleasure that I was able to push him off of me. And I pushed him out my door, and thank God my door had a lock on it, and I locked the door. So the second time I was raped, it was with an ex-boyfriend. I stayed over at his house one night, and we were like looking at old photos of our rock climbing together, and we made out. He asked me if I had a condom, and I said I didn't. And he said, no, we don't need one. And I was wearing a skirt, and he flipped me over on my stomach, and it was awful. I was like so stunned that it was happening. I didn't know what to do. I was like, what? I did not realize this was one of the options that was in anyone's mind. There was no asking, there was no warning. It was just, it was wild. It was totally out of the blue. I definitely have PTSD from my rapes, but I have worked really hard to reclaim my own sexual joy. And I've disclosed my PTSD and my experience to my sexual partners to make sure that they understand that this is something I don't get to like put aside, and it will always be part of my sexual experience. There's so many people out there who haven't told their story or who don't feel comfortable talking about their story. And I really respect that. And in order for this experience and this epidemic we are experiencing in our world with violence against women, unless we're talking about it in casual ways, then we're never actually going to be able to bring it into the fore of stopping it or preventing it. It feels good to be able to share my story and to also move back into being more public about that part of my identity. It's healthy for us to talk about immigration, our immigration experiences. It's healthy for us to talk about our queerness. It's healthy for us to talk about our unhoused situations. All of these traumas, the more comfortable we can get talking about it and sharing our stories, the more we humanize each other, and we don't take systematic actions that further harm. Most recently, what has really disrespected me as a survivor has been the hearings and community discussion around the Advocates Bridge program shelter in front of City Council. There were men, sounded like husbands and boyfriends, talking about their fear of their wives and girlfriends being raped because of the bridge program being in our neighborhood. And number one, there's no data that would support that fear. So while it's a fear, it's a perceived risk, not an actual risk. And what we know is that most sexual assaults will come from within the home, will come from intimate partners. And I deeply resented this story of rape from people who are already suffering so much. I resent that story is being weaponized against them when they are experiencing their own deep traumas. To be unhoused is its own deep trauma. And instead of caring about our community members and welcoming them into our neighborhood who are experiencing that and offering them relief, these men are afraid for their women when we all know that they are the real threat to their women. And there's a deep dissonance that I feel just gets me down to my bones, that people imagining that the advocates would ever take actions that would increase the harm to us, especially around sexual violence. You have to work really hard to make that case, because it's not a case. When I worked for Outward Bound, we do a lot of risk management, right? We're like on ropes, we're on snow slopes, we're driving vehicles on 4x4 roads, we're dealing with medical emergencies, hours from care. And we talk a lot in risk management about perceived versus actual risk. And if you let a perceived risk get in the way of an actual risk, you put yourself in more harm, and you avoid the wonderful things that you could experience if you let the perceived risks get in the way. Same with being a mom, right? Same with being an everyday person. You have to allow your logical brain to win sometimes. People's fears are their own personal experience. Like, they have to deal with it in their own way. And I respect fear. Totally respect that people are afraid. What I don't respect is other people being harmed because of someone's fear. And I also don't respect rule makers, decision makers, allowing people's prejudices because these fears are based on prejudice. These fears that people have of our unhoused community members are based on prejudice. And I don't respect decision makers who allow prejudices to keep from serving the community, to keep them from serving the community. And right now, our very housed population who lives in my neighborhood is absolutely influencing the livelihood, the health and safety of our unhoused neighbors. I think I don't respect that. So it's people's own personal journeys to figure out how they can come to peace with the peace being offered others in our neighborhood. And it is lawmakers' jobs to do the right thing. Yeah, I think especially as a decision maker now myself, I cannot imagine putting the fears of housed people above the needs of unhoused people. And if that's inappropriate to say, then I've made a mistake, but I can't imagine that situation right now where I would make that decision. If the bridge shelter got on Spruce Street, I would be stoked. I would definitely come over with lemonade and cookies. And I have a zillion plants. I would love to bring over anything that could help that fairly industrial shed feel more welcoming and homely, and anything I could do to help like beautify that space. I think it'd be fun if we all did like a block party or played soccer in their awesome parking lot field situation that's flatter than Chestnut. I'm on Chestnut, so they've got a nice flat spot. We could go caroling in the winter. Would love that. Yeah, all the things that you do with neighbors. When a neighbor moves into the neighborhood, do all the things that neighbors do. And the more people who come into our neighborhood, like what a boon to have more neighbors, I feel. Especially neighbors who are experiencing different lives than my own. I think it's really valuable. I really value that in community. Not only as an individual, but also as a mom. Like I want to teach my children how to see people as humans, and the more they can interact with people of different backgrounds and identities, the more empathetic creatures I will be raising.